Hello BookTube, hello Tudorverse. Welcome back to Tudortember, that wonderful annual event originated by Bookish Travels and Lil's Vintage World. For the past 2 weeks, I have been joining it with Poetry Thursdays to give you a twofer on Thursdays. And this week, because I am an overachiever, we're also going to be adding Shaketember for the trifecta. So my original thought had been to read one of the sonnets because I have not one but 2 complete volumes of Shakespeare sonnets. You wouldn't think that with like 6 books that I would have duplicates already, but what can I say? The used bookstore where I volunteer has a lot of classics fans, so I ended up with that. But then I decided that a sonnet would be a bit of a lazy approach. I mean, automatically, all of Shakespeare, or much of Shakespeare, also qualifies for Tudortember. I wanted something more intentional, more really Tudortember-centric, if you will. And for that, the perfect choice was the Abdication scene from Richard II. So let me start with context. Shakespeare wrote a number of plays, historical plays about English royalty. It's one of the ways he got his reputation as a bit of a Tudor propagandist. Richard II is the story of Richard's deposition by his cousin, Henry Bolingbroke, who then became Henry IV and the first Lancastrian king. And when you consider it in the context of the Tudors, there is a very strong argument that a Lancastrian, like Henry Tudor was, taking the throne away from a Richard, as Henry VII did to Richard III, would continue along the lines of Tudor propaganda. That kind of argument would keep you safe, assuming that the tone of the work went along with that. The story itself, though, was a bit more problematic. Shakespeare was not alone in telling the story. There was a man, John Hayward, who wrote the life and reign of Henry IV, and he used a very different tone, and that was, the story itself is problematic because it involves a relatively unpopular monarch being replaced by someone vastly more popular. And when this came out in the 1590s, Elizabeth had been on the throne for more than 30 years. She was kind of at the low end of her popularity. Taxes were high. There were a lot of problems. The succession was soon coming into crisis because who was going to take the throne after her? That was a lot on people's minds. So when Hayward came out with his The Life and Reign of Henry IV, he dedicated it to the Earl of Essex. And that got both Essex in trouble and Hayward in trouble. More context. Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, inspired the public. He also had royal blood. That was kind of the best kept secret of the time. His great-grandmother was Mary Boleyn, who had an affair with Henry VIII right at the critical time to put this all into play. Henry never acknowledged his daughter by Mary Boleyn, but that was largely because by the time that daughter was born, Henry had already moved on to Anne Boleyn, Mary's sister, and you really did not want to talk about that kind of stuff. But the fact remained that you had somebody with royal blood, very popular, and the situation was problematic. Anyway, Hayward's book was suppressed, Hayward was arrested, but Shakespeare, because of his tone, he was allowed to continue with his play, but without the abdication scene. that was not something that was going to be permitted to actually witness the degradation of a monarch who had been, remember at the time, people still believed in the divine right of kings. Elizabeth certainly believed in the divine right of kings, and so to see a monarch degraded was not something that was going to be permitted. So they didn't end up doing a lot of performances of it, but the one big performance that they did was for the Earl of Essex, the night before he did rebel and try to take the throne. He paid the players an extra 40 shillings to perform the play with the abdication scene for Essex and his men, kind of like the, coach riling up the players, and the next morning they went off. They failed miserably. Spoiler alert. Essex was vain, overconfident, and not all that bright. But so he failed. Anyway, the abdication scene. I'm not going to read the entire scene. I don't do voices. I'm not really good at that. So I'm going to read the Richard pieces and then kind of bridge them with a bit of an explanation, and I hope that works for you. So here goes. More context. He has just been sent to appear before Bolingbroke, who has emerged victorious and is now technically King Henry IV. And Richard is just not in a good place. So, alack, why am I sent for to a king before I have shook off the regal thoughts wherewith I reigned? I hardly yet have learned to insinuate, flatter, bow, and bend my limbs. Give sorrow leave a while to tutor me to this submission. Yet I well remember the favors of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, all hail to me? So Judas did to Christ. But he in 12 found truth in all but one. I in 12,000, none. God save the king. Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Well then, amen. God save the king, although I be not he. And yet, amen, if heaven do think him me, to what service am I sent for hither? Edmund of Langley then explains that Richard is to resign his crown and state to Bolingbroke. Give me the crown. Here, cousin, seize the crown. Here, cousin. On this side my hand, and on that side yours. Now is this golden crown like a deep well that owes two buckets, filling one another, the emptier ever dancing in the air, the other down, unseen and full of water. That bucket down and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs, while you mount up on high. Henry IV questions it, going, I thought you had been willing to resign. Richard, my crown I am, but still my griefs are mine. You may my glories and my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those. Henry, part of your cares you give me with your crown. Richard, your cares set up do not pluck my cares down. My care is loss of care, by old care done. Your care is gain of care, by new care won. The cares I give I have, though given away. They tend the crown, yet still with me they say. Henry, are you contented to resign the crown? Richard, no, for I must nothing be. Therefore no, for I resign to thee. Now mark me, how I will undo myself. I give this heavy weight from off my head, and this unwieldy scepter from my hand. The pride of kingly sway from out my heart. With my own tears I wash away my balm. With my own hands I give away my crown. With mine own tongue deny my sacred state. With mine own breath release all duty's rights. All pomp and majesty I do forswear. My manners, rents, revenues I forego. My acts, decrees, and statutes I deny. God pardon all oaths that are broken to me. God keep all vows unbroke that swear to thee. Make me that nothing have, with nothing grieved, and thou with all pleased, thou hast all achieved. Long mayest thou live in Richard's seat to sit, and soon lie Richard in an earthly pit. God save King Harry, unking Richard says, and send him many years of sunshine days. What more remains? The Earl of Northumberland at this point steps in and tries to order Richard to read out accusations against him so that the souls of men may deem that he is worthily disposed. Must I do so? And must I ravel out my weaved-up folly? Gentle Northumberland, if thy offences were upon record, would it not shame thee in so fair a troop to read a lecture of them? If thou wouldst, there shouldst thou find one heinous article containing the deposing of a king, and cracking the strong warrant of an oath, marked with a blot, damned in the book of heaven. Nay, all of you that stand and look upon, whilst that my wretchedness doth bait myself, though some of you with Pilate wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you, Pilates, have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sin. The Earl of Northumberland then tries insisting, read these articles, read these. Richard, mine eyes are full of tears, I cannot see, and yet salt water blinds them not so much, but they can see a sort of traitors here. Nay, if I turn my eyes upon myself, I find myself a traitor with the rest. For I have given here my soul's consent to undeck the pompous body of a king, made glory base and sovereignty a slave, proud majesty a subject, state a peasant. The abdication scene. Thank you for watching.